After the WWE war with WCW ended, Vince McMahon's company at that time was filled with great talent. Well, a lot of superstars started to arrive who, even though they were in WWE, didn't have enough time to appear on screen. This was because the same superstars as always appeared on both Raw and SmackDown. A lottery would be introduced to organize both brands and finally give them the time they needed. Each superstar, the star told me, great new faces were being created. But what no one could have guessed was that this brand split would end up in a brutal internal war within WWE, where those who worked for Raw would completely hate those from the SmackDown show. Stick around for this documentary for an exclusive look at the entire Raw vs SmackDown war, all for one goal: ratings.
Sometimes it's important for business and sometimes in life to take a half step back. That's what we decided to do when we started this brand extension, as we call it now. It takes time to build stars.
It takes time to rebuild why, but with a little luck on our side. To the channel and activate notifications. Questions? I hope you have some answers.
It's the year 2002. Vince McMahon knows that WWE is the global leader in sports entertainment, but he knows that his company isn't achieving it. He believes that the solution is to split both brands and have each show with its own superstars and its own stories. He believes that's the way to show two different sides of WWE and make the viewer choose what they really want to watch. Although, of course, his main focus was the Raw brand, a show that airs live on Mondays, while SmackDown is taped on Tuesdays to air on Fridays. Vince considered Raw the A show behind the scenes, while SmackDown was the B show.
SmackDown was Raw's bitch. Make Raw the B show. Make SmackDown the show to watch.
Paul Heyman was the writer of SmackDown at that time, and he knew that to plan a good show, you have to think about the future, not just day by day. On the other hand, WWE brought back Brian Geddes to be the head writer of Raw. A week after WrestleMania 18, the first brand split would happen on March 25, 2002. Vince McMahon was in charge of SmackDown, while Flair would be in charge of Raw. And let me tell you, some big names would be chosen.
The Rock! Whoa! And there you hit. The first pick in the draft is The Undertaker.
The war was just beginning. Some say there was a lot of hunger backstage because everyone wanted to destroy the opposing brand, and that was a good thing. There were more training sessions and they tried to create better storylines. Raw would start off at a big disadvantage. The Rock, their first big pick, would leave the red brand to go to Hollywood and focus entirely on movies. Vince needed to be behind the scenes to organize the shows, and that's how he ended up bringing in Eric Bischoff as the general manager of Raw, his main opponent in the WWE vs WCW war. Although many people backstage were very surprised, Vince knew that this was a good strategy to attract the audience.
Rings. Hey, pal. Vince McMahon here, man. Whoa.
Tell me I didn't just see that.
For its part, SmackDown was also introducing its new general manager, Stephanie McMahon, a villain who knew how to handle things and was willing to make her roster compete with everything they had. The war was already starting to brew, but Brian Gewirtz felt that his roster wasn't as strong as SmackDown's, and they needed to balance it. That's how Heyman told him that the Un-Americans could go to Raw, but he had to give him Eddie Guerrero. Brian wasn't happy with this trade, and he asked for Chris Jericho, a very important superstar. Heyman agreed to give him up only in exchange for Chris Benoit. Many believed that SmackDown was really the show that was delivering 100% pure wrestling. while critics said that Raw was only trying to create characters and entertaining stories, obviously mixed with wrestling. The first big shot would be fired by SmackDown, since Paul Heyman instructed his commentators, Michael Cole and Taz, to attack Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross, the commentators from Raw. From that moment on, the audience and the superstars started to take sides and defend them with everything they had. Backstage, there was a lot of encouragement among the teammates, and everyone was trying to cheer each other up. They felt that staying united was the only way they could finally work as a team and end up defeating the rival show. The first big blow would be dealt by SmackDown. Its ratings would go way above the Red brand, and in WWE, they were starting to lose their minds. The main show, or the A show as Vince had called it, was losing viewers. Even though they weren't competing in the same time slot, it was worrying to know that Raw, which was live, was getting fewer viewers than SmackDown. A pre-recorded show where even back then, the results were often leaked. SmackDown would beat Raw from July 2002 until February 2003. Big Show once said that he often heard the Raw wrestlers laughing, saying that the SmackDown guys were the B brand, but SmackDown managed to beat them in the ratings for almost a whole year on television.
Why not bring back classic Nitro to Raw since Raw just sucks, man?
What would you like to see?
Do something, man, cause like Raw sucked for like the last 2 weeks, man.
But the people from SmackDown would get pretty upset with Vince McMahon, who just by seeing how low Raw's ratings were, decided to bring them a surprise. A surprise to the Red brand that would help boost the ratings considerably and make Raw once again the #1 show. That big surprise would be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right now. Oh my God, there he is! The Stone Cold Stunner!
Austin's return would give Raw a pretty big boost, and thanks to his presence, Raw would end its losing streak in the ratings against SmackDown. The Rock would also return to the Red brand, and Goldberg's big debut in WWE would make Raw really take off. Although SmackDown tried to keep creating great moments with the roster it had, without any new surprises or any new faces for that brand. This great competition made WWE's sales go up in every way. Doing international tours, selling a lot of merchandise and pay-per-views every month, since each company had its own exclusive events, and that allowed the other brand to be anywhere else in the world. WWE's global market would grow thanks to these brand divisions, but of course, the war didn't stop there. Both brands needed to make superstars who had never been at the top before the faces of each brand. While Raw would choose Chris Benoit, who had arrived on the Red brand just recently. On SmackDown, they chose Eddie Guerrero, who at that time, and according to many colleagues, was the most beloved wrestler in the locker room, the most respected, and the one who tried the hardest to teach the new talents. His victory at No Way Out in 2004 cemented his place in WWE the way he deserved. He even had his own celebration the following week on SmackDown. But on SmackDown, they knew they couldn't have a great hero if they didn't have a great villain. They were hopeful that they could still beat Raw if they put together a good story. That's how the vast majority chose JBL. He left behind his past as a brush off and from now on would be a financial genius. A Texan who was only looking to manipulate and do everything for his own convenience. Some people backstage weren't sure that JBL was a wrestler meant to be a main eventer. But little by little they came around. If we keep talking about the villains, on Raw they were also being set up well. But this time, mixing new talent with classic and current talent. Evolution would be the name of the big project that WWE was preparing for Raw. Of course, the Red brand was still entertaining the audience and even decided to innovate with things never seen before. That's how Lita and Trish Stratus were in the first women's main event in WWE history.
It was like excitement mixed with confidence. 50% was like, my God, I can't believe this is happening. The other 50% was, you're damn right, this is happening.
WrestleMania 21 would be the big stage and a shared event for the brands, so Raw and SmackDown could show what they had up their sleeves. At that event, major characters would be firmly established, and this would lead to the biggest stars from each show eventually going to the competition. John Cena, for his part, went to Raw, while the Animal Batista debuted on SmackDown. The individual competitions between both programs would continue, and each show would keep pushing itself to the limit to have the top rating. Although SmackDown would soon decide to include entertainment segments, just like Raw, but things would already start to change. Raw's dominance became much stronger, and the blue brand would start to decline. As time went by, the brands would no longer be as sacred as they were in those years. Well, nowadays, Raw and SmackDown superstars show up on any brand every week without any problem. Back in those years, Raw and SmackDown were like Class A and B at school. Each one competed with the other to see who was better. Each one held onto their brand and wouldn't budge just to appear on the rival brand. Unless the draft decided it. Those were great times, golden eras that won't come back, moments when the rosters gave absolutely everything so their brand would be on top. There was a lot of preparation, great stories, and above all, good action. Even though WWE is still at the top of sports entertainment now, I wanted to remind you of this historic battle between Raw and SmackDown, so that we don't forget that at some point in history, these brands became direct rivals in a war that isn't over yet, and that maybe in the coming years, it could return.